morning, we were deciding, are we staying here or are we driving?
Hey, I wasn't here at last
Oh, really?
meeting because I had board review.
Yeah, okay, so picked up on some.
I don't know why.
Okay,
I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I can look at that. I don't know your name is, but I can log into
Yeah, depending on what time we get out, yeah.
One thing that surprised me is how far you can travel. It was like 4 minutes was the most.
Yes,
We traveled way north of that, and it was still 2:45 seconds. So it wasn't until you got right to the edge that it really shortened up.
it was a
Media's got questions, I can
Because
go
we went
straight
from-
aside and explain the project to them.
we went stopped in Marshall and rail service on Saturday and then went. Completely died.
The one that I sent just is
Let up. It got worse. My son and my father, we visited family in
Yeah.
Minneapolis, it was just, weather was great.
that, as we talked to.
Let me know when you're ready, Libby.
Yeah, it's finally
Anybody? Welcome, everyone. It's 8:30.
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. It's 8:30. We can go ahead and get started. Tom and I were just reminiscing about the eclipse. We've had good trips to Indiana. Ah, where did you go?
New Paris. Well, east of Indianapolis.
Call the April 11th, 2024 Utility Policy Committee meeting to order. Any changes or corrections to the agenda? Not entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by John, support by Jim to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is introduction and guests. And welcome, Steve. You're not a guest, you're an alternate today. City.
That's correct, yeah.
I think everyone here has been introduced at a recent prior meeting. And so we'll continue unless somebody wants to go through this. Okay, next item is item 4, acceptance of the March 14th draft minutes. And I understand, thank you, John and Lisanne, there's some corrections that need to be made in terms of the attendance.
I can't take
Credit.
anymore.
So, so we can handle this, we can either bring these back to the next meeting, or we can go through and correct the attendance, removing David Anderson and Lisanne Harma. And also then that changes all the motions from 7-0 to 6-0. So what's the preference of the group to either?
This is from last meeting?
Yes.
So these minutes.
Yeah, these are these current minutes. So it would change the votes 6-0 with the exception of the one would be 5-0 with your abstention on the interprofessional invoice and correcting who was present. I'd make the motion to accept them as presented with those corrections.
Support.
Motion by John, support by Tom to accept the minutes with corrections to the attendance and then the subsequent voting. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment? You do have an attendance sheet, I'm gonna pass that down. Unfinished business. Item 6A is the utility financial policy.
Peter
Yes.
Hefner. The group met via Zoom and just for a brief meeting this past, 2 weeks ago. And we determined that how to approach drafting up the utility financial policy based on what the city had. And I was to get the group a draft. At the beginning of the week, I did not because I did put together a draft of the various policies following the contracts, the past rate calculation, also some information provided by the prior rate consultant. And so I drafted up some of these things and I started looking at how the rate was calculated for the last 2024. And I had some questions, so I forwarded those to the city, Steve, who is on the committee. And he provided me back some information. We're going to discuss it today. And I would anticipate providing a draft to the city so they can take a look at it and perhaps our group gets back together and brings something to the next meeting would be my hope. So I think we've made some progress, but there are some questions that just need clarification. What I was trying to do is put some numbers, dollars, to these reserves. And when I started looking at the operating reserve, that's where I think the policy is not clear. And with some input from the city, I think we can draft something up and see if it's acceptable to the city and see how the group feels about the various balances. But I do feel like some numbers with these words would be helpful perhaps to this group. You know, how many millions is it or what have you, versus just some words. But I'm trying to make it crystal clear that this is how you calculate it because it is not. So I think we've made a lot of progress and we should make some more in the next period and hopefully bring something back to the next group meeting for discussion.
Okay.
Is that
Anything else,
reasonable?
Steve?
No, yeah, I think so. Okay.
Any other questions on that? Thank you. The rate consultant contract renewal. Information in the packet.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about it, Libby? You were in the meeting or?
Go ahead, this was actually another subcommittee discussion.
So the subcommittee that was responsible for review of the renewal of the rate consultant got together and had a nice discussion with James, got an opportunity to look at the proposal from Stantec. And the thought is that this bringing to this group, and I put together a memo, but thankfully Libby actually assisted greatly with making it look very nice and 99% of the words because she was within the group. But the thought was that James was happy with the rate consultants, and correct me if I'm incorrect, James, and that made a lot of progress in the first year from kind of a new contract to how do you interpret it, and that James has put together a plan on how to make the process smoother with additional review and input from the city. And the thought would be that, or the committee's concept was that we would approve a renewal for a 2-year period. Of course, the city still has to go through their process. Contingent on an acceptable rate for Stantec for year 2, as we only received a single year quote for rates. Is that
Yeah,
a
that's
reasonable
good.
summary of what we talked about,
Yes.
James?
Yes, I agree so.
So I think the committee, the primary component of it was how are they working with the city should we proceed, first of all, because they need to work with the city and the city was happy with the group and that based on that, we think we can streamline the process, improve the process and deliver in a more timely manner for this group to review things. And James had a plan before we got together on how to approach that. So I put together this brief memo, I think it says that. And the concept was that to bring a proposed motion to this group, unless this group decides, hey, we want to take another approach at it. But to propose a motion to extend the contract with Stantec for a 2-year period, the dating is there, accepting the proposed 1-year fee schedule with a year 2 contingent upon approval prior to XYZ date of an acceptable rate for the second year. That's a kind of a summary. The motion is clearly written on the document provided.
So move.
Support. There's a motion by David, support by Tom to extend the contract with Stantec from April 2024, April 1st through March, should be 31st, 2026, accepting the proposed year 1 fee schedule with year 2 contingent upon UPC approval prior to April 1st, 2025, of an acceptable second year fee schedule. Any further discussion?
That's why, thanks for everyone's work on it. Appreciate all that.
And my understanding is that the utility financial policy that's in the works will help clarify their work.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is where you wanted further improvement, yeah, so.
That and also James suggested he said he had a plan for additional city review now that the contract's better understood, things of that nature, and also facilitating, providing information to this group with more time for review. Versus last year, we got some things and it was 3 days before it or what have you.
Should note that Stantec is on the meeting remotely, as well as some other individuals.
Don't say anything bad.
So I don't know if they have any.
I have a question. So this is an extension of what they had already been doing, right?
Yes.
And so their fees are pretty similar to the original proposal.
Mhm.
So isn't there some savings from the work they've already done? I mean, I don't know. I can't relate to these numbers at the moment.
To some extent, that with the proposal, some of that stuff is for James, it's not the rate calculation. It's support of his operations when he's got things that have to be addressed, so it's not
Which
just
James?
James
Okay.
Baker. Is that fair
Too
to
many
say,
James.
James?
That's correct, yeah. There's other work product that's above and beyond just the rate calc to help support some of the ongoing capital projects and, working with DWSRF. There's some, deep dives into water affordability. That's something that we're going to continue to work on. So there's effort and energy that's going to have to be invested into this work that's beyond just the rate calc.
Thanks. That's helpful.
So yeah, it's not necessarily apples and apples. It's kind of apples and oranges. And we discussed that at the committee level. What's that?
Apples plus oranges.
That's a good question, and because there could be some years where there is not a new rate calculation.
Correct.
We're not there yet.
Right. So within the contract, Libby is pointing out that there can be years where this group decides there's not a need for a new rate calculation. Perhaps the projection was, 4, 4, 4, and we're comfortable in year 2 of just accepting what was in the first rate calculation. Nothing significant has changed. We could go without a rate calculation as well. And discussions with James was, we're not there. I need this support. I don't have the staff to do some of the things that Stantec is providing, and my feeling, and I think the group's feeling, was we want to support management and their ability to operate the system efficiently and effectively.
I think even if we end up in a year where we decide not to do a rate calculation, we still need assistance from the rate consultant for those other things, correct?
Yes, depending on the need and the level of capital and the questions out there, and
So there's a motion and a support, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is capital improvements, the existing neighborhoods policy guidelines, and we don't have anything detailed for this meeting, but I do have one question. I understand the process, and this needs to get integrated into the city's ordinance ultimately in late fall. Will the draft of the policy that the city attorney is reworking from what the subcommittee generated, will that come back to this group? Or I guess I'm looking for that to come back to this group.
Sure, I mean, we can bring that back, so the group can, see it as it sits as policy, so,
Okay.
we'd be happy to do that.
So that would be a draft ordinance, right?
Well, the ordinance wouldn't be as detailed as a policy. Ordinance would basically just have the numbers in it. Neighborhood extension is, this much, the system pays, and the customer pays this much. And then the policy would talk about the UPC's role and how that gets approved and how things are brought forward. So the policy is gonna have more language and detail above and beyond what the ordinance would state.
Okay.
So does the ordinance, because those numbers are gonna change every year, will that be like an appendix that gets changed as, so you don't have to take it to council?
Well, I mean, it would be similar to like the system capacity buy-in fee.
So every year you change.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, for us to have the legal authority to charge customers a fee, it has to be backed by ordinance.
Yeah.
So it was a draft policy that the subcommittee generated, so that's why I was thinking at some point it should come back for approval here.
Agreed.
Okay. Then the periodic review items, I lumped those together, and I think ultimately in the next month or two, we'll generate maybe a chart that shows the things that we look at, so that they may not be on every agenda, just throughout the year have some kind of a schedule that we look at items. Unless someone has a point they want to make on any of those, I don't have anything. Then new business, capital improvements, the water main oversizing request. And there's information that was in the packet. A request for support for the water transmission main oversizing agreement with the CB Arena LLC. This is actually going to the city commission for approval, this is looking for the UPC support of this, recommendation to support this project. It's a system improvement, my understanding.
That's correct, yeah.
Do you wanna walk through an overview?
Sure, I'll be happy to kind of introduce the topic. I'm sure the UPC is aware that we do perform water main oversizing agreements and construction management agreements with oftentimes developers who are doing projects where there's a benefit to the system if water main were oversized, or if there was some other type of work agreement. Our last one that we brought forward to the UPC was Abbey Farms. That was a successful project and upsized water to provide for future customers as well. This project is in cooperation with the Arena LLC, that's the planned downtown event center. Originally, there was a single 20-inch main that kind of ran through the center of the site. The developers required to relocate that at their cost. We requested that get oversized to 24-inch and that we build, essentially a leg, a double route that goes around it. So one of the things I'll talk about is there's a specific request that we brought forward now for water main oversizing and construction agreement for with CD Arena LLC for Kalamazoo Avenue, Park Street, and Water Street. There's gonna be a future request for Westnedge Avenue and another future request for Westnedge Avenue going back to Michigan. So what we're attempting to build here is a dual route 24-inch system that runs up towards Blakesley. That provides for system redundancy and looping of this big, 24-inch transmission main.
So the big pipe that they need to, is that Eleanor or Cooley?
So originally, the 20-inch main ran north through Cooley.
Is that right in the, I think this is like 4 blocks, right?
Correct.
And so that's directly up the center it was running?
Correct, yeah. So there's, in your packets, there's a few maps. And they both show kind of that big 4-block area. The water main had to get relocated from running up through the center of the site. We chose to put it over onto Park Street. And then as we looked at that, we wanted to have that system redundancy, just looking at how critical this transmission main, and this is essentially all the flow that gets produced at Central, and that is pumping it to Blakesley. Blakesley is a 7.5 million gallon reservoir, and so this is the pipe that connects that treatment plant to that reservoir. And so if this were to go down, that would be a very catastrophic failure for us. So looking at that criticality of the failure, we wanted to have some redundancy built into the system, and this presents a great opportunity for us to partner with the developer and, to achieve that system resiliency and redundancy within the project.
So the map indicates there's quite a bit of upsizing, 20-inch to 24, 10 to 24,
12 to 24 as well.
24, but this request is only for like 600 feet.
Correct.
So is there a disconnect there, or am I missing something?
Well, so we looked at this and we talked about, potentially bringing all the requests forward. However, this design is kind of proceeding as design build, and there have been elements of design that have changed and we've gone back to, different elements. So until we're really finalized with the design, we don't want to bring it forward. That being said, it's our full intent to bring additional upsizing agreements forward to cover the rest of this area.
So just the upsizing of what we're seeing here.
There's
Additional work that we're not seeing now.
We're not seeing, so right now there's, Westnedge has like a 6-inch main on it. What we're proposing in the future, and we haven't brought this to the UPC yet, is to make that entire run also 24-inch. So we'll have 24-inch on Westnedge and we'll have 24-inch on Park. And then another request that, again, we haven't brought forward yet is to then connect that 24-inch back down to Michigan Avenue. So we'll have, with that additional piece, we'll have redundant 24-inch pipe on Kalamazoo Avenue, Michigan Avenue, Park, and Westnedge. So that's the ultimate plan.
When is this work gonna happen?
This work that's proposed with this action item would happen this summer, if approved.
Down Park.
Down Park, Kalamazoo Avenue, and Water Street.
So that's with this one, the next 2 requests, would that also be this summer?
That could be, fall to winter, when construction actually will occur in that. Some of that is unknown. We don't really have some of those timelines understood right now.
Do you have a rough estimate of what the scope of those requests would be? Because this is like 130,000.
Right. Those other requests will be, there'll be higher dollar amounts for those ones, because we're running longer distances. But there's a lot of work. So to go into some other topics besides just water main, West Inch has to be completely reconstructed. We've got to move Arcadia Creek from where it is right now. There's some announcement that's gonna come out this afternoon that's gonna talk about that project. We also have a sanitary interceptor, 42-inch, that has to move. And then we've got the plan for the 24-inch water. So with those other elements that are still kind of moving around, so to speak, we weren't confident in bringing the design forward this early with what that could look like.
I'd like to clarify a point that Tom Lee raised, is we are looking at roughly $130,000 commitment on the water side of things with 28,000 in contingency, if I'm reading this correctly. Is that
That's
my
correct.
understanding?
Yeah.
So the Westnedge work, future phase, will happen as a joint developer city project, but it's just unknown at this time?
Which is unknown. We still have to bring that forward, and we'll follow the same process. We'll bring that forward to the UPC with our recommendation, and then that would also have to come forward to the city commission as well when we know that information.
Just for a comparison of apples and oranges, the Abbey Farms oversizing, I think, was like 525,000.
Yeah, it ended up being a little less than that because there was some additional assistance that the county provided, but originally.
Oh, that's right, yeah, we took advantage of the, yep.
Yeah, the original request was around 500,000, and I think it was knocked down to around 375,000.
Yep.
The distinction is that oversizing would likely get paid back to the system in the future by future connections. Whereas this is a system improvement.
Correct, this is
Which won't,
mainly this is a transmission
necessary,
band, right?
yeah.
And there's no proposed connections on this route.
Still important, very important, yeah.
But it's also important to recognize that because of the development, that the developer is gonna be footing a larger part of the cost of the system improvement than the system is. Because they're replacing what's there, and we're taking advantage of going larger. So
Right.
more material, the trench doesn't get much bigger.
Good point. This is an action item.
It hasn't been moved yet.
It has not.
I'll move acceptance.
And I'll support.
Motion by Jim, second by John to accept the proposal for the oversizing for this project as described. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the first quarter financial review. We provided
Yes, so
information
it's
with
the
this.
first time I provided in the, distribution to the board members, the quarterly look at the financial information. It is not in the paper handout. There's a revenue report in there, I'm not sure what that goes to, but, so then I handed out a separate document. It should look 2 pages long. I left some up over at the table. And it should look like what we've looked at in the past. And the first page of this document, it should say City of Kalamazoo, UPC 33124 budget and actual water fund detail. And this is a summary of some of the information in the paper packet. And it's the same look at just comparing what is the budget for 2024, what is the actual through 3/31/2024. And at the top right, you can see expenditures in the current year, $8.2 million, budget $84.6 million. And I started going through, so I look at this and then I can drill down into the detail and I can provide it to you as well. You click on it and it shows you what makes up these balances. And so, as you can see on the right, there's a comparison of the actual to budget. And it's especially in the first quarter, it's a little difficult to say, hey, we should be at 25% of our budget because construction happens at a specific time of the year. And to some extent, James's team is taking care of the needs maybe of a break or something else that occurs. And overall, the budget probably when you get to June or September or the end of the year, that's when it kind of starts to true up. But I would think theoretically you'd be at about 25% of your budget, and you can see that we're well below that. To some extent, that can be based on when is a bill paid, what happens with accruals at year end, when are they reversed. So I was just looking at it and I was like, I don't see anything that's super duper meaningful to me here, other than when I take a look at the revenue, which is near the bottom. You can see water and sewer system, and it says revenue. And you can see budgeted for $33 million and $6 million have come in, so 18%. And theoretically, I would expect us to be at 25%. And then again, I think people water their lawn not in January, February, and March. So I thought the numbers looked reasonable, budget and actual, and on the opposite side of that page, I just provided a comparison of what does 2024 look like for those very same categories of revenues and expenses. I called them expenditures. And I compared it to where were we at the quarter before. And these numbers start to get closer to the same. You can see some things are up, some things are down. And then again, I looked at the revenue line near the bottom and it says water and sewer system, and you can see the revenues are up from the prior year, which is logical to me anyways, just as we have increased the rates. And so I was thinking to myself, how do I make this more meaningful? And so I put a third page together, and what I did is I just tried to summarize by line item capital outlay, because capital outlay is a big component of the operation. And then I looked at chemicals, that's a big expense. And then I looked at internal charges, that is charges by the city, might be for using equipment or services provided by another department, or administrative fees. Then I put together debt service, supplies, other utilities, wages and benefits. So I just thought it was probably a more concise trying to refine what we're actually looking at. And hopefully that is exactly the same data on the prior two pages. And my takeaway was this year more capital is happening. And I'm guessing that may be due to the weather and maybe lead service lines, I don't know. Chemicals, costs are actually down. Now that could be due to the timing of invoices, but better down than up. And then when we take a look at city internal charges, about the same as the year before. Debt service is up, well, more bonds have been issued. Supplies, you can see slightly down from the year before. Utilities down from the year before. And wages and benefits very consistent with the prior year, 3% increase. And so this is the exact same data as on the prior two pages. I think the prior two pages become more meaningful when you get more months in a year. So January, February, March are not representative of a quarter of the year. just because of the level of construction and things of that nature. We can look at this anyway, people want to, someone else can take it and take an approach at it. But I think it's part of our responsibility in the contract to be looking at the numbers and, looking for any large spikes. And I did provide this in advance, and I'll make a point of doing that. And perhaps, Libby, we can look at like, when does the information go out? So that everything goes out at
Yes.
once.
Yes. We'll try to-
Not that it's a big deal to me,
Yeah.
but something could get missed if somebody said, hey, I
Maybe we
got my
put the
stuff.
packet out on Monday or something. Is that?
That way we
within
know
the
when to
city.
get it in, to get it out. But my intent would be to provide that in advance if you choose to continue with this. And I added that third sheet, hoping it brings a little more meaning to the process. And I'm not intricate in the numbers, but just looking big picture, I didn't see something that was scary or what have you. And if I misspoke, by all means, the folks that run the system and account for the system should tune in.
Very good. My recollection from talking about the rate is that there was going to be additional staff this year, but maybe they're not added yet or something.
There is additional staff that's coming in that was approved last year. They're not all in place yet, and you probably won't see that in terms of actuals until probably 2024 year end.
And if you want more detail, this is a summary. In the paper packet, there's this revenue report. This is that information just summarized. So you could go into these schedules and click on it if you had a question, and you could see where were we last year, where were we this year, for every one of those line items. So when I do question something, it's helpful to be able to say, oh yeah, that's this or that or the other. But same information.
Your summary is very helpful.
It's a little hard for me to look at those 17%, 16%, 30, 90, 100, but sometimes it's a line that has $10,000 worth of budget or whatever, and you got 13,000, and they're done with it for the year. So it does make sense, to me anyways.
This is a discussion item. There's no action. Is there any other questions? Next item, 7C, is professional services invoice consideration.
Approval for payment, redevelop Hefner invoice number 6321 in the amount of $282.
Support?
Motion by David, support by Jim to approve the redevelop Hafner invoice as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Sorry.
Yep. Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstention. Next,
Move approval of Prime and New invoice number 80680 in the amount of $543.30.
Support.
motion by David, support by Jim to approve the Klein and Newhoff invoice as described. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 abstention. And we missed you last month, David.
One thing I missed. I have a question. I don't know, every month, I don't seem to have an invoice here, but I check accounting and they says, oh, they're paid up to date. And so I don't know what's going on. Are you not getting them? You're not? Okay.
So I've been sending mine to AP at City and CCing Wendy so that they get
Did I
here.
pass that on to do the same thing?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll check again. Thanks.
And did you decide or James, does it make sense to do the Monday before?
Yes,
For
I
the
think
distribution?
we just said Monday should work.
Okay. By noon or something, huh?
I was gonna say end of the day.
Okay, end of the day Monday.
And that email came from you, right? Where to send the invoices. So I'll just go back and resend it to them. My apologies.
So the invoices need to be the Monday before 3 days ago or
Yeah,
10 days ago?
3 days ago, right?
Okay.
Is that sufficient?
Well, no,
I guess we
that's,
can't,
that's when the packet goes out.
Right.
So the invoice should be in prior to that, is what you're saying?
By Monday at the end of the day, right?
1 week prior?
Why?
Well, to assemble the packet.
Oh, okay. I just assumed, I was just thinking you just get it and you put it in there, but maybe. James, do you wanna work with Wendy and identify when we should have stuff to you, so then we know? To do the distribution the Monday before, does that work?
The notice needs to go out the week before the meeting, so I need all of the information, your invoices by Thursday before our next meeting. So 7 days before our actual meeting, I'll need your invoices to include in that packet.
So
That's when everything needs to go out.
can we say Wednesday
We can send an
before?
addendum and an attachment if you want to do Monday, but that's just, my process is the week before the meeting.
So the Wednesday before.
Yeah, it's just for us, we get, the timing of this is I get my bills like on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
By Tuesday afternoon, I can get it out, but maybe, and that's been working well.
Yeah, I just didn't, I was hoping like if I do the financial report or have something to put in there, that, like that financial report, you don't generally get it the night before, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I need to get with Wendy.
yeah, just
Deadline,
communicate
yeah,
what we
yeah,
would need when,
yeah.
and so it all goes out together, if we can.
Next item is committee member, alternate attendee, and guest comments. And start with those in attendance.
Nothing other than I thought it was a good meeting and appreciate Peter putting the stuff in context that really is what we need to take a look at. Just defining that was a different way of looking at those numbers. Just second what Ted said. Thank you, everyone.
You know, there's so much heavy lifting that goes on at this table, and I'm really appreciative of everybody. And the information is awesome, so thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I have nothing, thank you.
One question of James. In my newspaper, I had this $3 million in that. I know it's well water, but this is sewer. Can you tell me why the city's paying $3 million? I know that 2.1 is gonna come from GPI, and then there's half $500,000, and then there's a representative that's gonna report back to you.
Yeah, so it's a
I'm
three.
just wondering why
Yeah.
why the users are paying
Yep.
do Georgia Pacific's work.
Yeah, it's a $3 million project. That pipeline is an interceptor class pipeline, so interceptors are system, they're not individual, so that's an interceptor project, the system pays for it. Originally, that interceptor pipeline served a bunch of industrial customers, something in the neighborhood of 12 or so, big industrial users. In 2012, that pipe was rerouted to the south, so all the customers in the south were rerouted, where we took Riverview lift station and rerouted those flows into the river interceptor. And then that last customer, which is GPI, have been kind of just hanging out there. So that's a interceptor, that's the system, and it's the system's responsibility.
Thank you. And then we do have a number online. Any comment? Sherry, Eric, Jim, Joe, Evan?
Morning, everyone. No comment, thank you.
No comment for me either.
This is Jim Behrman from Stan Tech. No comment from me as well. Look forward to working with the group again. Thank you.
Thank you. Member comments,
And
Peter?
No, almost there.
I'm good, thanks.
Just want to mention, we've got a public hearing for the Richland and Ross Township DWSRF projects. It's gonna occur Monday, the 15th, so this next Monday at Grace Spire Church at, I believe, 6 p.m.? Okay, 6 p.m. So we should have a good turnout. Unfortunately, I will not be there because I'll be at the city commission meeting, so we'll have staff in attendance.
Do you anticipate similar attendance to what was at the DNR meeting last fall?
Yeah, I would imagine we're gonna have a pretty healthy turnout. I don't have exact numbers, but I would imagine we'll have, a full house, so to speak, from both townships.
Physical letters were not mailed, so we've just been advertising on our website as well as on the sign in downtown Richland. So, did you guys mail out letters?
I was told that letters were mailed out directly. No.
No, that decision was made to not mail letters.
Okay. So no, we're just doing electronic, like our agendas and our board meeting. I think that, and thank you for having this conversation with me, I think the standpoint from Ross is until the project is approved, people are just gonna kind of wait it out, but I would think that those that are really involved in understanding, like the KBS turnout, those individuals will be there. That's my guess.
I
And it was a full house, wasn't it?
will.
It was.
Yeah.
I will note that, and it's not as important for this group, but the presentation has to be made such that you're expecting 0 grant. So there's gonna be some numbers that are gonna be talked about in that meeting that are big numbers for connections. But that's just the nature of what has to be presented from Eagle's standpoint. And likely the project would be adjusted if there's 0 grants.
Correct, yeah.
Those are decisions in what, September, October?
Yeah, we won't know where we come in at until the intended use plan or draft intended use plan is published.
will that meeting have some type of a Zoom or, no, I just wondered if it would.
I do not believe it is set up for Zoom.
Okay.
The reason why that location was selected is because when there was the meeting at KBS, I was there, and there were only a few seats left available, and so it just wasn't a large enough venue. So we've had meetings, as it's related to PFAS before at Grace Spang. It's a central location, and there's certainly plenty of seating available there, so that's why, the decision was made to have them do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many of the Richland residents have already gone through this because they've had it before. And so as far as Richland residents, I really don't know how many people will be there.
And there was a meeting at Ross at the fire barn, and then maybe a month later out at the biological station, and so there's been a lot of information out there for the past 6 months on this. This is gonna be project specific, so I think a lot of people already know a lot about it, so.
And it's a requirement too, that's why there's the need.
you have to do it.
Park some equipment out there, James, you'll fill the hall.
That's true.
May 9th is our next meeting. That's all I have other than sharing an image.
Is that one of your brother's photographs?
No.
No.
This is, he didn't really try to photograph it. He said, I wanna watch it instead of fumbling with my camera.
Yeah, the very interesting thing about this is you can see what they call prominences, the solar flare
flare.
things.
You could see it with
You
your
could see
naked
those.
eye during totality.
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
It was,
It was brighter than that.
So was there a lot of partying and drinking and that kind of stuff going on, or?
Just my sister-in-law.
How about you, Todd?
No, we were in a public park and a bunch of kids around.
No, I was at a winery and I had a glass of wine.
She got a coffee cup, but I knew what was in it.
No, I know the next one's in 20 years, but I still recommend that you travel to go see it. It's quite
I don't
a-
think I'll be traveling in 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to.
Steve, anything? Okay.
Well, there's actually one next year in Iceland.
I hear you get some pretty cheap flights, guys.
The 2026, my brother wants to go to the Valley of the Kings. But my sister-in-law's not so sure. We'll see how stable things are at that point. So, okay, we've exhausted the agenda and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Nice job.
I don't know if you can see what I can see.